right, so we're going to return back to the Windy City, my hometown, Chicago. All right. And, you know, there's a couple things that are going to happen here. Just remember, ICE is winding down its operations. They're not leaving. They're still here. They are still here. They're still here doing their operations. It's just not as big as it used to be. And depending on how the lawfare that's going to take place these next couple of months, they will come back sometime in the spring and summer of 2026. At least that's the promise they made. Now, they said that they were going to come back. And how do I know this? Because in February this year, they were here. Tom Homan and Dr. Phil, how do you know me? We're here in Chicago. And then late summer, early fall, Operation Midway Blitz. So they were here in Chicago not once but twice. So they'll come back for a third time. And why do I say that they'll come back? It's because the city of Chicago, unfortunately, has a bad reputation. Look, there's good people in Chicago. There's a lot of people here trying to live their lives the best they could. But unfortunately, Chicago's got a political corruption, infrastructure corruption. We're a hyper-segregated city, and there's a crime and violence element here in the city. And despite what numbers will tell you, what politicians will tell you, mayors or city councilmen, everything else in between, the crime ain't going down. The violence is very real. And just because it's getting cold outside and windy and raining and snow and sleet and all that ice is coming down, no, I don't mean ice the organization. I mean the actual natural weather ice is coming down. That's not going to prevent crime. And if there's one thing that's going to be fueling a return of ICE and perhaps more of a crackdown on crime, and once again showing how inept Mayor Brandon Johnson is, and including even challenging Governor J.B. Pritzker, it's what happened to Bethany McGee, who was the victim of being set on fire on the Chicago Blue Line train. 60% of her body damaged by the fire. The suspect was arrested 72 times. And the thing is, there's other incidents of crime and violence taking place in Chicago, and you better believe that those who are against Mayor Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker, most notably Trump, are going to use this as political ammunition to justify a return to coming to Chicago. Case in point, this video here.
So all the crime that took place last night, the night before, the woman with the burning, they burned the woman. To be talking about that now, they burned this beautiful woman riding in a train. A man was arrested 72 times. 72 times, think of that. And they'll let him out again. The liberal judges will let him out again. But we're ready to go. You know, we've been moving toward Chicago. We have a governor that thinks it's wonderful that only like 7 people were killed this week. But we are moving toward doing.
I want to correct if he's referencing what happened in front of the Chicago theater. There were 7 people injured. 1 person died. And that was a shooting that took place in State Street in front of the Chicago theater. If you guys take a few moments out of your time and type up the Chicago theater, you'll look at it and say, wow, that's a pretty ritzy joint. It's in the downtown area. I mean, Chicago theater is also infamous for one location in which allegedly, supposedly, our Saint Alphonse Capone might have been blamed, or people associated with his organization being blamed for shooting out some of the glass ceiling or glass windows at the Chicago theater. Allegedly. Alphonse Capone's is a saint here in this household, but that's probably what he's referencing here. But what happened to this woman is just god awful and terrible.
It's wonderful that only like 7 people were killed this week, but we are moving toward doing, and we're going to, if crime gets, it's horrible what's happening in Chicago. We could make Chicago a safe city in a period of 4 weeks. In a period of 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, it would be totally safe. And the people of Chicago want us to go there. And if you look at the crime that's taken place in Chicago in the last 2 weeks, just take a look. It's on the front page of every newspaper. It's out of control. The mayor is incompetent, and the governor is a big fat slob.
That's not funny, but it kind of is. Jeez, jeez, Trump. You know, name calling and everything.
Newspaper. It's out of control. The mayor is incompetent, and the governor is a big fat slob. He ought to invite us in, say, please make Chicago safe. We're going to lose a great city if we don't do it quickly. Make Chicago, we'll do the same thing as we did in D.C., the same thing as we did everywhere we've gone.
All right. So, what's the takeaway? What is the real takeaway here? First of all, Schlager says this dipe shite still makes me laugh sometimes like a child. Now, everyone's saying, why is the mayor responsible for a crazy person on the subway? Well, if you look at this mayor and his policies, especially with his, I guess, proud record of crime being an all-time low, all of those figures and numbers are kind of being blown up in his face, especially with what's happened in recent incidents, and not even including Operation Midway Blitz that was taking place during the summer and fall of this year. Um, but Mayor Brandon Johnson is definitely going to be a target by Trump because Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker have for a long time been strong opponents or been very agitating opponents to Donald Trump and his administration. Now, Bethany McGee, she's still fighting. The person who did this, there is footage of him committing this crime on the CTA. It's just as disturbing what happened to that poor woman who was stabbed on the bus. And the fact that there is real lack of accountability, especially lack of mental health, and also accountability for crime here, it says a lot about how Chicago is. When I have friends and family visiting Chicago, especially coming in during the holidays, like now, you know, perhaps I might sound a little overbearing, but I tell them always, hey, be careful when you're on the train, be careful when you're on the bus, travel in a big group of people. If you're not, take a cab, take an Uber. I don't know, figure it out. But be careful if you're going to be on the CTA because you never know. And even I had my, close encounters. You got a crazy person yelling to themselves on the train. And, I used to go to college at Northeastern Illinois University, and it would take me about an hour, maybe hour and a half just to get there. It's a long and arduous drive there, and you never know who or what you'll run into. But this right now is just causing more problems. And case in point, right now, I just want to pull this up here. This has to deal with the further lawsuit that's going to be taking place in Chicago because it could probably lead to the sequel to Operation Midway Blitz, depending on how it all turns out. Newly released transcripts of deposition given by Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino in Chicago shows a series of tense exchanges between one of the leaders of Operation Midway Blitz and attorneys involved in an ongoing use of force lawsuit related to local immigration enforcement this fall. As it stands right now, there were 400 people that were set to be removed or set to be released. Right now, an appeals court has halted that. Bovino sat for a sworn deposition over 3 days in late October and early November as part of a federal use of force lawsuit filed on behalf of Block Club Chicago, other media groups, protesters, and clergy. After arriving in Chicago in September, Bovino became the face of Operation Midway Blitz, which federal officials have said has led to the detention of thousands of people in the city and suburbs. Bovino left the city in mid-November to oversee similar operations in North Carolina, but some immigration arrests are still taking place in Chicago, and more agents could return this spring. They will return. They shall return. It's going to happen, and the National Guard option is still on the table. If there's one thing Trump wants to do, is definitely give a gut check to a major metropolitan city, and that's going to be Chicago. I remember when he used the same tactics in D.C. earlier this year, and he mentioned Chicago. And right off the bat, I knew we were going to be the first one. And in 2026, he's going to do it again because it's a midterm election cycle. And what better way to shake up the Democrats than by using show of force? I mean, this is what's going to happen. This month, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis issued a sweeping ruling that extended restrictions on federal immigration agents' use of tear gas, pepper balls, and physical force in the Chicago area. Last week, a federal appeal court paused Ellis' order, calling an encroachment on the powers of the federal executive branch. In his deposition, Bovino admitted he lied multiple times about the events that occurred before he threw tear gas at protesters during a standoff with neighbors on October 23rd in Little Village. According to the ruling, for example, he initially testified that he tear gassed the crowd after a protester threw a rock at him. He later admitted that he was mistaken and he actually deployed the gas before the rock was thrown at him. Jesus Christ, Bovino, way to win hearts and minds of Chicagoans. And we've played those videos before, and the way ICE was handling crowd control was an absolute disaster. People were being tear gassed or being assaulted or hit at for no reason whatsoever. There was no justification of intensive force, which is why I said throughout this entire time when Operation Midway Blitz was taking place that there needs to be a sit down between the leaders, Trump, Brandon Johnson, Governor J.B. Pritzker, but no sit down took place. And my goodness, are we lucky things did not intensify? But because of what's happening in Chicago, because of the crime, it's going to return again. There is no plan because Chicago's lacking the one thing: leaders that actually give a damn and leaders that want to lead. This city's $1.1 billion in the hole. What's everyone expecting? Everyone to be having smiles on their face, especially with the aftermath of the government shutdown? People are on edge, which is why I'm always careful whether I get in the car, I get in a cab, I'm walking down the street, or getting on the train. Because you never know what's going on in somebody's head right now. With all the trauma and drama that's happening in the streets of Chicago, be it from the high echelon leaders making their policies to somebody just trying to get on by, everyone's on edge, even yours truly. Continuing on, the white rock was thrown at me, but that was after I deployed less lethal means in chemical munitions. Bovino said November 4th, I was mixed up with several other objects. It was a very chaotic environment, and other objects were thrown at me, and I confused that white rock and other objects like water bottles and fireworks and many other things that were happening at the time. So I want to correct that. Deposition transcripts show Bovino was questioned about immigration agents deploying tear gas in Irving Park in late October, which led to the cancellation of a children's Halloween parade. Jesus Christ. In the deposition, Bovino defended the actions of federal agents at the incident. I found that to be more than exemplary use of force by our agents. No, it wasn't, because we played videos of ICE agents chasing after a guy on a bike in the Loop area on Upper Wacker Drive because he said mean things to them. There was another video in which I was a guest on the Jimmy Dore show where we showed excessive use of force on a person that ICE was alleging was an immigrant, and it caused the whole community to show up. I mean, my goodness, this is absolutely stupid. And if they do return in the spring and summer, who else is going to get hurt? Is there going to be an incident that's going to lead to violence and constant madness in the streets of Chicago? All this needs to stop now before it can get worse. Continuing on, in her opinion for the preliminary injunction, Ellis wrote that she repeatedly found Bovino's testimony not credible. Bovino was excessive, either giving cute answers to attorneys' questions or outright lying, the judge said in her ruling. The deposition transcripts also show tense standoffs between plaintiff attorney Locke Bowman of Lovie and U.S. Department of Justice Attorney Samir Khorshid, who is defending Bovino and the government. Throughout the deposition, the defense objected to questions from Bowman over Bovino's communications with senior members of the Trump administration. The lawyers also repeatedly bickered about decorum and the process. On October 30th, the defense noted that Bowman didn't want to shake Bovino's hand when they went in. That was noted. I get your position. This is like the hill you're going to die on here. That's fine. Treat him with respect. Treat me with respect. You're a professional, he said. Bowman replied, treat the process with respect, sir. Ugh. Guys, the next 3 years is going to be wrapped up with the legal stuff. And when ICE returns again, there's going to be more mountains of legal lawfare and paperwork. We're going to be wrapped in this red tape maze for maybe 10 to 12 years, and no one will get satisfaction. Because that's how it works in the legal process. No one's ever happy. Nobody is ever happy. Despite what you see on TV, it's never quick. This stuff is going to be going on for at least more than a decade. And when it's all said and done, there'll be another problem waiting in the wings. But Chicago's got an issue. And what happened on the CTA, what happened in front of State Street, the aftermath of Operation Midway Blitz, this city is not prepared for the storm that's going to come, not for next year, but for 2027. The mayor's budget failed drastically. The mayor's at 5% approval rating. The city is struggling right now. We're dealing with the trauma of Operation Midway Blitz. We got a crime problem. We got political corruption. Tell me, folks, you see the powder keg. It's going to blow. There's going to be another incident after that. And so anyone who's saying, well, Chicago's going to get a communist, Chicago's going to get this, Chicago's going to get that, I don't know who's going to want to sit on the throne. But to anyone that's going to be considering running for mayor or alderman, if your heart's not in the game to save this city and its people, don't do it. If you're going to try and make a career out of what? Being a politician in Chicago, look elsewhere. Because if there isn't a real plan, Chicago will be one big steel concrete tombstone. No one's going to want to live here. No one's going to want to improve it because we don't have people that want to save it. And it's up to the people to lead. So don't put all your hopes in electoral politics. It's got to be us Chicagoans. Otherwise, nothing will fundamentally change.